What even is the MCU anymore? Hey everybody, Kyle Anderson here. Agatha All Along just wrapped and introduced a new status quo for a slice of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I won't spoil it just yet in case you haven't watched, but it ended on a note of a page turning, with characters' futures unsure, but a definite mission in place. As of now, Marvel Studios has announced no plans for a follow-up series to Agatha All Along, itself a reaction to the success of WandaVision. What Agatha had to do, ultimately, was introduce another new future Young Avenger in Joe Locke's Wiccan. But with one lone exception, we so far have no idea when, how, or even if we'll get Young Avengers before the big Secret Wars reboot. Since Avengers Endgame in 2019, we've gotten 12 feature films and 11 seasons of TV that take place within the proper MCU. We know, because of announcements and hype, that the next Avengers movies will be Doomsday and Secret Wars in 2026 and 2027, respectively. Marvel just announced its 2025 slate would include 3 feature films and 7 Disney Plus series between now and December of next year. Dan Casey did a whole video a couple months ago about all the post-credit teases in Phase 4 and Phase 5 so far that have yet to be picked up. Go over here and watch that. But even completely taking the post-credit scenes out of the equation, just based on where we leave various characters in movies and TV series, we don't really have much in the way of a unifying force. The Infinity Stones were a very useful way to make sure even the most disparate movies felt like they took place in the same cinematic universe. Now, I'm not so sure there even is one.
Damn it, where'd it go?
So that's what we're going to be talking about today. What even is the MCU anymore, and can and will it ever go back? Nope. For the record, I'm not even saying it should, but that does seem to be where everything is heading. Marvel Studios needs to fold the Fantastic Four and the X-Men characters into the mainline MCU in a shakeup for the ages. Are the movies and shows we get until then just treading water? Or worse, will we get invested in continuing adventures only for them to be rewritten, rebooted, or simply removed from relevance? From the moment Nick Fury came out of the shadow at the very end of Iron Man 1, back when it was still called The Great Iron Man, the nascent Marvel Cinematic Universe purported to be something no comic book adaptation had ever done. Represent what reading comics is like, in film form. This concept fully realized in 2012 with The Avengers 1, aka Sparkling Justice League, in which characters from disparate, seemingly unrelated films joined together to establish a new status quo. Every so often, in the MCU, troubles would get so big that it would take all the heroes to win. This continued into phases 2 and 3, where even more disparate heroes and teams debuted, all eventually leading to big crossover films like Captain America Civil War and Thor Ragnarok, and then of course, Avengers Infinity War and Endgame. The concept, which by this point had spanned 10 years of blockbuster films, made it so every entry felt mandatory, or at least highly suggested in order to understand everything.
I don't understand what's happening.
It's truly an unprecedented and unreplicable feat. That was proven right after when the audience began to feel overwhelmed by the amount of new Disney Plus series, not to mention even more movies. Some of these dealt directly with the aftermath of Endgame, while others introduced brand new heroes and worlds. By now, it feels like nothing is connected, or leastwise very little. And I actually think that's a good thing, because it's more representative of the reality for big two comic book readers. While it's certainly true that some people read every comic that a publisher puts out, Marvel and DC each put out way too many titles every month for people to keep up with, either financially or just for time commitment. Even voracious comic book readers will usually pick 1 or 2 lines they enjoy and stick to those. When I was a kid, I read Batman, X-Men, and Spider-Man. Wasn't an all-in reader, couldn't afford to be, but when I bought a comic, it was one of those. I never felt like I was missing anything by not reading the issue of X-Factor that crossed over with Thor or whatever the If you can't pick it up through context clues, it's probably not important. Like with TV and film, you can't expect the audience to be completionists. And look, I like to be pandered to as much as anyone. But movies like Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine all but require you to be a franchise scholar to fully appreciate it. Not everyone is, and those people deserve to enjoy also. Take my wife. For example, she likes the Guardians movies, the Black Panther movies, WandaVision, and Agatha All Along, and maybe a handful of others, but that's it. She stopped even asking me what other MCU movies she'd like because far too many of them need, at the very least, cliff notes to get everything. Agatha, spoilers now, ended with Wiccan and Agatha's ghost heading off into an uncertain future to find his brother Tommy, whose consciousness likewise ended up in a new body. Naturally, you'd assume we'll get some kind of follow-up in the coming year or so. The thing is, at this point, we have no idea when or even if that story thread will go anywhere. We can hope it will because Agatha all along was surprisingly excellent, and it seems to have struck a chord with people who, like my wife, were WandaVision fans and wanted to watch more of that kind of thing.
Okie dokie, neighbor.
But look at the release slate as we know it so far. 2025 will have 3 movies: Captain America: Brave New World, Thunderbolts, and The Fantastic Four: First Steps. While The Fantastic Four promises something new and seemingly unbeholden to what came before, the other two, well, to get the full context for Cap 4 and Thunderbolts **, audiences will need to have seen 3 Captain America movies, 4 Avengers movies, The Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, the Black Widow prequel movie, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and 2008's Incredible Hulk movie with Edward Norton, because Tim Blake Nelson's teased villain The Leader will be back. Not to mention be generally aware that Harrison Ford is playing the same character that the late William Hurt played in 5 movies over the span of 13 years. I follow this stuff for a living and have already seen all of it, and I'm exhausted seeing that list. Thunderbolts is maybe the least noob-friendly movie in MCU history. On the TV side of things, we'll get Daredevil Born Again, Ironheart, the animated series Eyes of Wakanda, and Wonder Man. We'll also get 3 other animated series that aren't in the main continuity. Daredevil is picking up from a once-defunct Netflix universe that has been more or less reintegrated into the main MCU. Ironheart follows a character who was introduced in Black Panther: Wakanda Forever, but is more of an Iron Man follow-up character. Eyes of Wakanda, also all Black Panther. Wonder Man, presumably, will get to be his own thing. It probably won't be until Vision Quest in 2026 at the earliest that we'll get any kind of movement in the Wiccan Speed storyline, if at all. And maybe all of that won't matter anyway, because in May 2027, we'll get Avengers Secret Wars, which will almost assuredly reboot or at least drastically reshape the MCU, and dear God, finally fold in the mutant side of things. Back when Echo was coming out at the beginning of the year, remember that show? Marvel producer Brad Winderbaum said it was ushering in a new banner called Marvel Spotlight. With Spotlight, fans won't need to watch all or in fact any other MCU projects to understand what's going on. He said at the time, quote, "Marvel Spotlight gives us a platform to bring more grounded, character-driven stories to the screen, and in the case of Echo, focusing on street-level stakes over larger MCU continuity. Just like comics fans didn't need to read Avengers or Fantastic Four to enjoy a Ghost Rider Spotlight comic, our audience doesn't need to have seen other Marvel series to understand what's happening in Maya's story." This sounded like a really good idea to me, and it still does. I think the best course going forward is not to hang every single adventure on the big, massive MCU crossover. Like the comics, fans should get to choose what corner of the Marvel Universe they care about and only follow that. And yet, how can something that literally reboots the universe like Secret Wars not impact street-level shows like Daredevil, or even cosmic stuff like Guardians of the Galaxy 4 should they make that? Way too much stuff happened in Phase 4 and Phase 5 that will seemingly not get followed up for years. Shang-Chi 2 is probably not happening for a while, what with its director Destin Daniel Cretton now focusing on Spider-Man 4. Who knows what the hell is going to happen with all those Celestials at the end of the Eternals movie nobody likes? And let's say you're a big Iron Man fan, and you're also a huge fan of War Machine, and we're looking forward to Armor Wars when and if they ever make that. But you didn't watch Secret Invasion either because it didn't interest you, or you heard it wasn't very good, because it is indeed not very good. You'll be entirely lost with the whole Rhodey was a Skrull thing, which I'm still mad about. So the War Machine in Endgame was just the Skrull the whole time? I refuse to believe it. So I guess what I'm saying is this. Every movie, every TV show in the MCU should be a Marvel Spotlight. Allow for character development within small subsets of stories so that if you watch WandaVision and Agatha, you can stay in that weird magical realm and not worry about anything else. When the MCU began, it was fresh, exciting, and novel to know all these characters existed in the same universe, and more than that, would meet. That freshness is gone. Marvel is the biggest studio on Earth, but maybe they need to go small so they have somewhere to go again. Much like the promise at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, wherein Peter Parker is alone swinging through Manhattan, content to deal with his own roster of menaces, allow these characters to stop interacting with the larger universe, because right now, the larger universe is a mess. But tell me, what do you think? Should the MCU go small and focus on individual series and movies? Would you rather it be all team-up movies from now until the end of time? And why, oh why is Blade so hard to make? Jeez, it's vampires!
There's only been one Blade. There's only ever gonna be one Blade.
Let us know in the comments below, and for more of the latest and greatest in the pop culture multiverse, keep it glued to Nerdist.com.